Good afternoon and welcome to Bookworms, the show where a bunch of people who love to read get together and talk about what they've just been reading or a book that's really interested them or excited them. Did I mention my name is Lucy Cooper? I'm not sure because I'm actually meant to be here with our lovely bookworm, Alan Wilde. But something's gone wrong in the mix and he ain't here, so it's just me. So plus I've been away for some time. I have been away for 4 months, 3 months from New Zealand, then 4 months from the world of work. And consequently, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm very pleased to say that Michael, on Mike B.
Indeed.
Oh, wonderful.
And there I am.
He's going to join me instead.
Hello.
Hello, Michael. Thank you so much for leaping in.
Should I try to be Alan Wilde?
Could you? Would you mind?
Oh, I think I will. Yes. So I've been reading a little bit. How about you?
Just for clarification, Alan is from Wales.
Not from Bangor.
Exactly. How's it going, Michael?
Bit of this, bit of that. Fine. I've been doing lots of reading too, but I can't do without having a book on the go.
Oh my God! I get into a fright if I leave to just go down the shops without a book? Nearby. Like I have to have one just in case.
Well, you have a shopping list. That's something.
Well, sometimes I write my shopping list in my books.
Oh.
How are you about books? Are you a spine breaker?
All right. Here it is.
Yep.
Now, my wife belongs to a book club. There are certain... the first thing I do when I get one of their books is I go to the frontispiece to see whose name is in it.
Okay.
And some of them I can't read because they manage to keep books pristine. I just have to open a book and it's turned into a bomb site.
Same. Yeah. Yep. Do you read in the bath with books?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
And that makes the pages go all crinkly.
And if you borrowed a book from someone who just does not do that...
You then have to buy them a new book sometimes.
Totally. Yeah, my book bill is quite high because and also sometimes you don't know what that person, you know that person quite well in other respects, but you don't know how they are about books. And they hand you a book and it's fairly pristine. You might start making assumptions. Turns out they've never read it. And actually they are a spine breaker and a bath reader.
Yeah. Yes, I don't want it to get out. I don't want to have a reputation as a spine breaker, that sort of thing.
It sounds like a leadership style we should be talking about. Actually, my book is all about leadership styles.
Good segue.
Yes, I know. I have missed this, I've got to say. It's been away too long. Shall I leap straight in?
Please do.
Because actually this is... so I've got to say that sometimes preparedness is not my forte.
Right.
And so I hadn't really thought about how this book might translate into Bookworms.
You've got some Post-its though, so there's obviously some bits that you've prepared beforehand.
Absolutely. In no deep way, but I do love people who... Katie Abbott, who I co-host Recuperate with, she turns up to shows with piles of books full of Post-it notes and she looks so learned.
Yeah.
So that it's all... It's all appearances I'm going for. So, I'm not quite sure how this book is going to come across on radio, actually. So it's called Radical Candor, or Candor. How to Get What You Want by Saying What You Mean, by Kim Scott.
Is that sounds like... I'm sure it is wonderfully what it is, but all those books that promise how to get what they want sound to me like terribly manipulative kind of right-wing power-broking type things. This probably isn't. But I'm always suspicious of anything that says how to get what you want, or how to get what you want from people is even worse in my view.
Yes. So now I'm casting my reading experience of this book through that lens.
Yes.
And thinking you might be onto something.
Right.
Well, it's how I see. So I am quite interested in how people work, how we can work effectively, and also the world of work is changing quite radically. So this concept of just turning up to work, clocking in, being some sort of wage slave, and then clocking off. Yeah. And then thinking, well, that's 8 hours of my life I'm never going to get back again. These days people tend to think about work as a more kind of immersive experience, don't they? As an extension of your life and not instead of living. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So as a consequence, that has led me down a rabbit hole of a whole variety of this type of book. Right. But what I like about them is that, so sometimes I enjoy working with people, and I enjoy the concept of being able to help myself and others get the most out of a project, and do the best that we possibly can. But I am conscious that sometimes I get in my own way of doing that.
Right.
So reading books that might help me to kind of navigate, the gnarliness sometimes of interpersonal dynamics at work, and working out how you can have difficult conversations with people but still come out friends.
Good.
Yeah, you do. That's what.
Yeah, good. I think the gnarliness of interpersonal. I love.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to be the name of my book. So that's how. And often, I'm a great one for after I've read a book, I like to go to the a reading list at the back.
Right.
If a book has those, and then I'll try and read as many of those that sound exciting. And I think that's how I came across this Radical Candor. And also, it's got It's an international bestseller, Michael, and it's got at the top a quote from Sheryl Sandberg, who is amongst leadership circles and kind of women execs. She's like kick-ass. Like she's like the woman you want to be. She's like the poster child of leadership. I
haven't actually decided yet who the woman I want to be is, but I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Okay. Under your unwavering gaze, I'm feeling less and less confident about my choice.
Please, I want to go to your first poster.
So it's got a quote from Sheryl Sandberg. That this book will help you inspire teams to do the best work of their lives. Now, bearing in mind, Michael, I don't lead any teams.
No.
But it's just like in case anybody asked me to lead a team. And actually, I did lead a team in my previous role. Earlier on this year, to do with a resource consent. It was particularly tricky, and there were some interesting people on that team. And sometimes I flannelled a bit when the rubber hit the road.
Here's a mixed metaphor for you. Flannelled when the rubber hit the road. So, did you read this? You read this book after, too late for that?
Yeah, totally.
So do you think Steve Hansen should have read that some time ago? Because he led a team that didn't do too well just recently.
I think, Michael, that some of the tips and tricks in this book would go across genres.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's no harm in... I think what I like about this book is that Kim Scott has learnt by her mistakes, and she's really forthcoming about what those mistakes were. And she's also forthcoming that, some of the mistakes she's made in the past probably still haunt her a little bit, And I like that. I like that humility that goes with some of these things. The kind of brasher style of leadership or self-help books is slightly off-putting because you just think, oh, I'm a loser before I've even started. But, she's kind of like a loser. She's been a loser too.
Good.
So I don't even think I've chosen the best parts of this book to read out.
But you don't want to, because you want to encourage people to read them and say there are still nuggets that I have not plumbed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So her idea of radical candor is like an intersection between challenging directly and caring personally. So her view is that to lead a successful team, or to be successful at leading teams and to enable them to do the best work of their lives, you have to really care about the people that you work for. It's no good just, swanning in, telling people what to do and then swanning out again. And I think that reflection is on the basis that, lots of people leave their jobs they don't leave their jobs, they leave a bad manager, Yeah. So her beef is that we really should be caring personally. If you care personally about somebody or about people on your team, then you're more able to challenge them directly and give them the feedback they need in a kind of quick way.
Candour.
With candour, exactly.
Yes. Right.
And she also has this neat. So there's I don't know if people watching this on telly. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Hang on. So it's coming up now. There's this kind of really neat. What would you call that, Michael? It's a
cross with arrows on the end.
Yeah, thanks. But what do you call that? It's like a. It's on a
a grid. Is it a grid?
It's like a grid where you've got caring personally, challenging directly. Caring personally on one intercedes and challenging directly on the other. And then and it's divided into quadrants. Yeah. And you've got ruinous empathy, radical candour, manipulative insincerity, and obnoxious aggression. So if you care personally without challenging directly, you're either going to subject people to ruinous empathy, or if you get it right, if you get the balance between caring personally and challenging directly, you're going to achieve radical candour. If you don't care enough and you do the challenge directly, if you do too much challenge, you're going to be manipulatively insincere or obnoxiously aggressive.
Great.
I know. And she actually says that it's better to be obnoxiously aggressive. If you can't get it right, then go for obnoxiously aggressive rather than ruinously empathetic.
Good. I'm feeling adjectively replete.
I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, it's good. I get what it is.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like charging off to the extremes of one quartile. You need to get a bit of everything.
Exactly.
Stick around the middle.
Yeah. And for a man of your depth and experience, you're probably thinking, well, obviously. But I think it does, for some people it does come as a bit of a challenge, how to kind of get that balancing act right. Mm. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I'm not a person who's I achieve by accident.
That's exactly what she does in the book.
All right.
So I don't know if it's worth me
speaking. That's what you're here for.
It is, and I've been going on and you're probably gathering your thoughts as well because you've been co-opted onto the show. Okay, so
read.
Developing trust, Michael. I feel like I should be doing this in an accent, but that would don't know in these difficult times whether that's appropriate. Developing trust is not simply a matter of doing X, Y, and Z, and you have a good relationship. Like all human bonds, the connections between bosses and the people who report to them are unpredictable and not subject to absolute rules. But I have identified 2 dimensions that, when paired, will help you move in a positive direction. So this is where we get to challenge directly in Wairarapa. The first dimension is about being more than just professional. It's about giving a damn. Michael, giving a damn. Yeah. She's American, so we can do that in our heads. Sharing more than just your work self and encouraging everyone who reports to you to do the same. So, embracing the whole person, but probably not actually.
In a work-appropriate way.
That's right. Though she does talk about that. She says, in some teams she's worked, the boss has been a bit of a hugger, or a backslapper, or, and, you have to kind of get that right. Oh, Alan Wilde's turn. Alan,
too late.
Come and join us.
I'm being No, you can sit in this chair. No, I need to hear the rest of this.
Yeah. I've gone on long enough, Alan. You've saved us all. Welcome, Alan.
Come over here.
Oh, I'm going to turn your microphone on. That's a help, isn't it?
But bring it over a bit. Bring it over. Right. Come here, lad.
It's lovely to see you, Alan. And you're going to talk about Bill Bryson, which is so much more exciting than what I'm doing.
In one hell of a rush for you.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. It's lovely to see you. Alan Wilde, everyone. Late, but
thank you very much, Lucy.
I'm just going to quickly get my bit of reading out the way, Alan, if that's all right with you.
Yes.
Where were we? We're sharing more than just our work stuff. I'm reading a self-help book.
Ah.
Yeah, I know. Lots of people having exactly that response.
Right.
It's not enough to care only about people's ability to perform a job. To have a good relationship, you have to be your whole self and care about each of the people who work for you as a human being. It's not just business, it's personal. And here's the kicker, deeply personal. I call this dimension care personally. The second dimension involves telling people when their work isn't good enough. Oh, God, and this is the bit, that makes me feel anxious. And when it is, when they're not going to get that new role they wanted, or when you're going to hire a new boss over them, when the results don't justify further investment in what they're working on, delivering hard feedback, making hard calls about who does what on a team, and holding a high bar for results. Isn't that obviously the job of any manager? ? But most people struggle with doing these things. Challenging people generally, ain't going to swear here, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Pisses them off.
Goodness me.
Good description.
And at first, that doesn't seem like a good way to build a relationship or to show you how to care personally. And yet challenging people is often the best way to show them that you care when you're the boss. This dimension I call challenge directly.
Right.
And probably that isn't the best 2 paragraphs to have read out. I mean, it and there is an ookiness, I think, around some of it, I think.
Yes.
But I have certainly picked up some tips. So and I think sometimes reading these books is a good way of consolidating what kind of makes you tick and, what you find a bit of a turn off.
Yes, and it's all too easy to take the piss out of things like this, and it's my natural bent to do so.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you need to read some stuff, and even if you go, yes, I know all that. There's no need to put it into a diagram.
Yeah.
It 10 minutes later, when you calm down,
yes,
you go, okay, that was worth knowing.
Definitely.
Or having reaffirmed.
Yes, and I think also what it does is make you a bit more mindful. Well, for me anyway, mindful when I am dealing with people where there might be a difference in style or approach in terms of coming together on a project or something. It's useful to be reminded of those things because you think, right, where are they coming from? Where am I trying to get to? What tools do I need to use to try and get the best out of this person or this situation?
Right.
So, yeah.
And there's a real talent to that, isn't it? Some people have it, some don't.
Yes.
No matter how much they work on it,
Yep.
they can never develop that rapport.
Exactly. I think it is about rapport, isn't it? It's about being a nice person as well sometimes, eh?
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh, he's onto it. Look,
Isn't he?
I have to go out there and I don't know,
manage.
Kick some ass, but in a caring way.
Well, he's better kick him mines for a start.
Yeah, exactly.
Being
We're
late.
going to challenge you directly, Alan, on why you're late. So, thanks, Michael.
Come over a bit.
You've been marvellous.
Be more central.
Yes, come on over. Don't be a shrinking violet, Alan. It's not your style. Thanks, Michael. See you later.
Well, I've got a real passion. There's nothing to do with this today, as it happens. But I really love birds.
Right.
Wild birds, all birds. And that's why I'm late today, in that I was setting traps down the other end of the farm to catch these wild cats that we've got on the place and so on and so on.
Good for you. Do you know, I think you're allowed to be late for environmental purposes.
Thank you.
I think, absolutely. That totally rings my bells.
But coming up in the car, I was watching the time going up, and all the women were arriving, mainly women, to pick up their children from school. Yes. So there was cars everywhere, and it was difficult to get through.
You poor thing. And it's stressful, eh? You must have felt a little bit...
Well, I'm sorry, I left it late.
No, that's all right. Let's crack on straight with your book, because you've got Bill Bryson. I love Bill Bryson.
My book today is by Bill Bryson. Have you read any of his?
Oh, heaps. And he's addictive, isn't he?
Yes. This one is The Thunderbolt Kid. And for listeners that haven't read any of his books, look, I thoroughly recommend it, because we can all do with a laugh from time to time. Yes. And he's exquisite at it. He writes mainly travel books, that is to say, books about different countries and so on. And he's an American. He comes from Des Moines, Illinois. The amazing thing is that I had an uncle that emigrated over there in the 1920s. I've never met him, but he settled in Des Moines. But Bill Bryson has got a nice little saying of when he started up his book, and I think his first one was Neither Here Nor There, and he says, "I come from Des Moines." Well, someone had to.
I remember that line. And do you know, it was the first line of any Bill Bryson book I'd read, and I thought, I'm in great company. You know, instantly it puts you at ease, doesn't it?
That's right. So some of the books he's written, The Lost Continent, Mother Tongue, Neither Here Nor There, Made in America, Notes from a Small Island, Notes from a Big Country, Down Under, African Diary, A Short History of Nearly Everything. And I've just come back from a holiday in Britain, and while we were there, I bought another Bill Bryson book that I left with my niece, and then a second one he brought out, I think it's called All About Your Body.
Oh, so okay.
You can bet there'll be a power of laughs too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought I'd for the listeners that haven't read any of Bill Bryson's, I thought I'd just read a couple of excerpts.
That would be wonderful.
To give them the type of reading that they can expect.
Just which bit to choose.
That's right.
Because they're all laugh out loud funny.
Yes. This is all about his younger age, of course, when he's just grown up as a kid in Des Moines. And his father was a truck driver come electrician. His mother was a reporter, worked in the local magazine and paper there. And he says everything else in those days, baseball was part of the similar word. And I was allowed to go with him, talking about his father, into the changing rooms and dugouts and on the fields before the games. I've had my hair tousled by Stan Musial, I guess that was a famous player. I've handed Willie Mays a ball and had skittled past him and he played a catch. I've lent my binoculars to Harvey Kenny or possibly Ben Hoft so that he could scope some dusty blonde in the upper deck. Once on a hot July afternoon, I sat in a nearby Ellis Club house under the left field grandstand on Wrigley Field in Chicago beside Eddie Banks. And he rambles on about talking about these various famous baseball players, of which I know nothing. I've never ever followed the game. But he goes on to say, I can't imagine there's ever been a more grateful time or place to live than in America in the 1950s. No country had ever known such prosperity. When the war ended, the United States had $26 billion worth of factories that hadn't even existed before the war. $150 billion in savings and war bonds just waiting to be spent. No bomb damage, and practically no competition. All that American companies had to do was stop making tanks and start making battleships and start making Buicks and Frigidaires. And boy, did they. By 1951, when I came sliding down the chute, almost 90% of American families had refrigerators and nearly 3/4 had washing machines, telephones, vacuum cleaners, gas stoves and so on. And he says what a fantastic place it was to live, and I bet it must have been. Americans owned 80% of the world's electrical goods, controlled 2/3 of the world's productive capacity, produced up to 40% of its electricity, 60% of its oil, and 66% of its steel.
God.
I mean, even now they dominate things, but then they were in their heyday after the World War.
That's right. And he's got a remarkable talent, Bill Bryson, for incorporating facts into his writing in a way that you don't even realise you're receiving great information.
That's right.
Yeah.
When I was at the Open Polytech, I used to write assignments, and I had to do a bit of research on building subjects to write these assignments. So I appreciate the massive amount of research he's put into these books.
Definitely.
Because you say they're full of facts.
Yeah.
Yet you don't realise you're learning facts at the time because he puts it over in a funny, comical way.
Yeah, but he's great for helping out small talk at parties because, often I'd be chatting away to somebody and I'll have all these facts on my fingertips.
That's right.
I think the other thing he does is he makes you appreciate times gone before for things that perhaps today, basically he's describing massive consumption of goods.
Yes.
But he makes you... He describes it in such a charming way. You almost yearn for that, Those days before we knew too much,
One stage, remember, he's still only about 5 or 6. He's still growing up, very young. And he's learning now about sex from his sister. He had a sister, and she liked to think that she was an authority on sex. She was 11. and he says, by chance, soon afterwards, this was after coming back from a walk, I had an additional experience that shed a little more light on the matter of sex. Coming from play one Saturday and finding my mother missing from her usual haunts, I decided impulsively to call on my father. He had just returned from a long trip to the West Coast. The World Series between the White Sox and Dodgers has a recall, and we had a lot of catching up to do. So I rushed into his bedroom expecting to find him unpacking. To my surprise, the shades were drawn and my parents were in bed, wrestling under the sheets. More astonishing still, my mother was winning. My father was obviously in some distress. He was making a noise like a small trapped animal. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Oh, Billy, your mother is just checking my teeth," my father replied quickly, if not altogether convincingly. We were all quiet a moment. "Are you bare under there?" I asked. "Yes, we are." "Why?" Well, my father said, as if that was the story that would take most telling, "We got a bit warm. It's warm work, teeth and gums and so on. Look, Billy, we're nearly finished here. Why don't you go downstairs and we'll be down shortly?" I believe he was supposed to be traumatized by these things. I can't remember being troubled at all, though it was some years before I let my mother look in my mouth again. It came as a surprise when I eventually cottoned on to what I realised that my parents were having sex.
That's so gorgeous.
You just imagine. Absolutely hilarious, you know. Oh, good God.
We've got a few more minutes. We've only got 3 minutes to half through. What else can you read us? Because I could listen to you reading the telephone book.
Well, can I just... He's got little captions here from newspaper cuttings because his mother worked in a newspaper shop. And one of them here is a cutting from the paper from the Des Moines Register, 23rd August 1958. Mobile, Alabama. The Alabama Supreme Court yesterday upheld a death sentence imposed on a Negro handyman, Jimmy Wilson, 55, for robbing Miss Estelle Baker of $1.95 at her home last year. Mrs. Baker is white. Although robbery is a capital offence in Alabama, no one has been executed in the state before for a theft of less than £5. A court official suggested the jury had been influenced by the fact that Mrs. Barker told the jury that Wilson had spoken to her in a disrespectful tone. A spokesman for the National Association of the Advancement of Coloured People called the death sentence a sad blot on the nation, but said the organisation is unable to aid the condemned man, because he's barred in Alabama.
Oh my God!
Oh God! $1.95, and they were sentenced to death.
It's outrageous, and in a way. I mean, I remember reading that particular book, and thinking about how Bill Bryson might navigate the discussion about race, and I think. My overwhelming feeling is he does it quite well, for a white guy, you know. But yeah, snippets like that make you realise.
Well, he's married to an English woman.
Yes, is he?
And he's just fallen in love with Britain.
Yeah. Oh, yes, he has, hasn't he? That's right. He loves it, doesn't he?
And it's his type of country because he's discovering things all the time. And there's so much to discover in England. It's so old.
Yeah, that's right. And he loves all that, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's been wonderful. We've taken ourselves up to 3:30. This has been Bookworms. You've been Alan.
Late.
And you'll continue to be Alan.
I'm afraid so.
And my name's Lucy Cooper, and you can listen to... There's a new episode every 2 weeks, and in between we repeat this show. So you'll get to hear Lucy and Alan again next week, and then I can't remember who's on after us, but if you've enjoyed this show, then do follow how we're getting on. You can watch us on Wairarapa TV and from the Arrow FM website. So thanks, Alan. It's been a fun episode.
It's been great, even though it's been late.
See you next time.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.